Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa amma ba'd. This is an English rendering of chapter 51 in Hujjatullah al-Baligah, which is actually chapter 50 in the Arabic version. There is a little change in the numbering here. What is chapter 51 in the English translation of Hujjatullah al-Baligah is chapter 50 in the Arabic. The title of this chapter is The Harmful Influences of Sins, which in Arabic is Mafasid al-Atham. You should know that major and minor sins can be designated from one another in two respects. One of them is according to the wisdom behind piety and sin, and the second according to the divine laws and codes particularized for one time and not another. As for the major sin, according to the wisdom behind piety and sin, it is a sin that strongly requires punishment in the grave and at the resurrection, and that greatly harms the sound civilized order, or as Shah Waliullah calls it, the irtifaqat, the supports of civilization, and is radically opposed to the original nature. The minor sin entails some of the aforementioned, or often leads to it, or requires something of it from one aspect, but not from another, such as the man who spends in the path of God while his family goes hungry. Thus, he repels the wild quality of miserliness, but destroys the domestic order, what Shah Sahab calls Tadbirul Manzil. As explained earlier, the basic purpose of charity is to curb the vile quality of miserliness in a person. As for their designation, according to the particular divine laws, a major sin is something that the divine law specifically forbade, or for which the lawgiver promised hell or legislated a legal punishment, that is a had, or for which he designated its perpetrator as an unbeliever outside of the community as an expression of its repugnance and to emphasize its disgusting nature. Sometimes a thing may be a minor sin according to the wisdom behind piety, and a major sin on the basis of the Sharia. Sometimes a thing may be a minor sin according to the wisdom behind, sometimes a thing may be a minor sin according to the wisdom behind piety and sin, and a major sin on the basis of the Sharia. An instance of this derived from the pre-Islamic period is that sometimes their religion practiced a sin of lesser gravity until it became spread as a convention among them that could not be easily uprooted. An instance of this derived from the pre-Islamic period is that sometimes their religion practiced a sin of lesser gravity until it became spread as a convention or rasm among them that could not be easily uprooted. Started as a minor sin, but it became so prevalent that it was very difficult to uproot it from society. Hence, it assumed the form of a major sin. Therefore, the divine law forbade it, but those people insisted on doing it and were stubborn, so that according to the divine law, condemnation and threat were proportionately produced, so that perpetrating this act became tantamount to severe hostility to the Islamic religion, and no one ventured to commit something like this except a mutinous person who was recalcitrant and unashamed before God or the people. Due to this, it became recorded as major sin. In summary, we will postpone discussing the major sins on the basis of the divine law until the second section of this book, because that is its appropriate location. That is in volume 2 of this book. Here we will give information about the harmful effects of the major sins on the basis of the signs of piety and sin, as we did to some extent about the types of pious actions. That is in chapter 49. People disagree about what is a major sin. When a disobedient person dies, having committed a major sin and does not repent, is it possible for God to forgive him or not? Each faction put forth the proof from the Quran and Sunnah. The solution of the disagreement, according to me, that is according to Shah Waliullah, is that God's actions are of two types. Some follow the customary course of nature, while others are breaches in custom. The propositions which people discuss are determined by two different modalities. One of the customary mode, and secondly, the absolute. The condition of a contradiction is the conflation of the two types, like what the logicians decided in the case of modal propositions, qadaya muwajjaha. Sometimes the mode may not be indicated, and thus in this case, the context must be pursued. Thus our saying, whoever ingests poison dies, means according to usual custom, and our saying, not everyone who ingests poison dies, refers to the breach of custom. Thus, these are not contradictory. Just as God, may he be exalted, has actions in the world which defy the customary course of things, and actions which follow the usual course of things, likewise, in the next life, there are actions which defy custom as well as customary ones. As for the usual course of things, it is that the disobedient person, if he dies unrepentant, will be punished for a long period. Sometimes there may be a breach of custom, and this is the situation of the rights of human beings. As for the perpetrator of a major sin being eternally punished, this is not true, and it is not God's wisdom to treat the major sinner and the unbeliever equally. That means if a believer who commits major sins, he will not be treated in the same way as an unbeliever, and God knows better. This is the end of the chapter. This is a trial chapter.